The original Planet of the Apes franchise that ran from 1968 to 1973 was always a vessel for some of the wildest and most ambitious ideas in the science fiction genre, with many of those ideas being used or homaged throughout the more modern iteration of the series, whether it be the 2001 remake or the ongoing rebooted series. One aspect that has not been touched on in the modern movies, however, is time travel. Is it something that should finally make its return to the franchise? I'm here to give my thoughts. If you like what I do here and want to show your support, be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. Enjoy the video. And welcome back to Ape Nation, your number one source for all things Planet of the Apes on YouTube. My name is Josh, and today I wanted to talk about the possibility, or lack thereof, of the Planet of the Apes films one day bringing back time travel. Now, for those unaware who have only seen the modern movies and have never watched the original series of films, first, what are you doing? Go watch them. They're really great. But second, if you have not seen them, spoiler warning for a bunch of 50-plus-year-old movies, but something that quickly became a prominent element throughout them is the concept of time travel. The original film, starring Charlton Heston, opens with a group of astronauts traveling through space in search of a better world before crash landing on what they think is another planet run by apes, but ultimately discover is Earth 2,000 years in the future. Then, in Beneath the Planet of the Apes, the second film in the original series, the same thing happens with the character of Brent, who took over for Charlton Heston's Taylor as the lead of the film. The biggest and most science fiction heavy usage of time travel, however, came in the third film, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, in which three chimpanzees salvaged Taylor's crashed ship and used it to travel off of their planet amidst an outbreak of war and making their way back in time to 1970s Earth, with Kim Hunter's chimp character Zira giving birth to her son, Caesar, which kickstarts an alternate timeline, or time loop, depending on who you ask, that drives the rest of the films in the original series. Yeah, it's a little crazy and a little out there, especially by today's standards and expectations of Planet of the Apes, but hey, it works. Ever since the first film in the rebooted version of the franchise, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, released in 2011, and we got that brief but really exciting tease of a spaceship that will one day crash land back on future Earth, fans have debated back and forth when we might see that finally pay off. Time travel is far from new to big franchises, even in the modern age. Both Marvel and DC have taken their swings at bringing it into their universes, and even Star Wars eventually found a way to make it work. The key difference to me, though, is that the modern Apes films started out in our world, and have since made sure to stay as grounded in reality as possible, even with the main characters all being talking apes. But despite that, do I think it could work? Yes, but also maybe not. I think there are two sides of the coin when it comes to time travel in the Planet of the Apes franchise. I think there's two versions of it, if you will. When you look at the idea of an astronaut arriving and crash landing in future Earth like they do in the original film, I think time travel in that way, just that concept alone, yes, I do think it's going to happen at some point in this modernized version of the franchise. It's already been set up in Rise all the way back in that first movie when we get to see those astronauts going out into space and eventually getting lost. That setup has already been put in place, and I think it would be kind of a wasted opportunity to not at least acknowledge it eventually, whether it's in the next movie, whether it's 3 movies from now, whether it's the last movie. But like I said, I think it would be a big wasted opportunity to not at the very least acknowledge it, if not have it fully pay off. And also, I think tonally something like that could fit into a more fantastical looking world that we've evolved to in Kingdom, because while that movie is still set in the same universe as Rise, Dawn, and War, which are very hyper grounded movies to a degree, Kingdom expands things a bit, makes things feel a bit more fantasy, while still feeling very much like a post-apocalyptic version of our world. So I think the stage has been perfectly set for something like that to happen in this universe, and I think it could also be a logical next step to take the franchise after Noah's story ends. What they actually do with it from there, I don't know, but I do think just the concept of an astronaut or someone out there getting lost in space, it would fit, and it would feel like a logical progression from where things have gone so far. Now, while I think that could work, that idea could take place in this world that we've set up in these movies so far, there's another take on time travel that we see in the original Planet of the Apes movies, and that is something more akin to Escape from the Planet of the Apes, i.e. creating alternate timelines and possible time loops that tie the entire timeline back into one, again, depending on who you ask, or, creating this alternate version of how history transpires, having apes go from this, what we view as a post-apocalyptic world that they live in, that they've made their own, and then traveling traveling back in time to, let's say, 2010, 2005, or even 1990 or before then, that's the other kind of time travel that we've seen in Planet of the Apes. And when it comes to that version of time travel, that take on it, personally, I would guess that not only are we probably not going to ever see something like that, but I don't really think that we should. It's not impossible, but I have a few reasons as to why I don't think it will, nor should it ever happen. As of right now, the apes we see are nowhere near advanced enough to be able to work with that level of technology. While yes, that is definitely subject to change, especially if the next trilogy takes place 1,000 years later, it's definitely possible. But even then, when you look back at the apes of the original 1968 movie, even they weren't evolved enough to know how to use the technology that we have. So I don't know if apes are ever even going to get to that point where they're able to do things like time travel or operate machinery that's capable of time travel. There's also the fact that using time travel in a more fantastical way with different timelines and time loops and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to a more just heightened reality way that is more akin to what you get with just having someone lost in space crash landing on Earth. I think tonally that doesn't fit in this world. That doesn't fit with what we've seen so far. Maybe they can find a way to make it fit. Maybe they can come up with some way in which it feels like it isn't so out of left field, and they can make it feel that it fits naturally into the tone of this world and the aesthetic and the more grounded nature of everything. But as of now, I just don't see how they can make that work. Now, maybe they could find an alternate method of having a future ape get to experience or at least see the past and what the old world was like without actually traveling back in time. You could do something, obviously it wouldn't involve magic, but something like the Pensive from the Harry Potter movies, having the main character somehow experiencing the world of another character way back in time without actually traveling back in time, or maybe just have some sort of flashback that is directed in a certain way where a character can see it. But I think that's as close as we might ever get to having an ape go back in time. I just don't see them actually making it happen, and I think that's the closest we'll ever get to it if they even do something like that. I'm not convinced it will 100% never happen, but more than likely, I think there's next to no real chance. Now, as for when we could see something happen, if we ever do, I would say not likely until at the very least the next trilogy, assuming the movies even get that far. We still haven't even gotten the second movie in this planned trilogy, and I do believe it's going to happen, but assuming that we do eventually get that third trilogy, I don't think we're going to see it until then. And if we don't see it till then, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens in that first movie in the next trilogy, movie number 7, and that kicks off the final story, whether that means the protagonist is a human who crash lands on Earth, or that the main human character is like a co-lead of some kind, similar to May in Kingdom. I don't know, but I think that's more than likely how they're going to go about it. I also think it's possible that it could be a concept that's set up in movie number 7, and then maybe finally comes into play at the end of the second movie in that trilogy, maybe not even until the third. Truthfully, I think it's too soon to be making these types of speculations, but it is fun to imagine what's coming, and when, and where. But speaking of that speculation, I want to know what you guys have to say about my speculation. I want to hear your speculation down in the comments below. Do you think we're ever going to see time travel? Do you think we're going to see it to the extent that we saw it in something like Escape from the Planet of the Apes? Do you think maybe they'll even take it a step further and play around with alternate timelines even more than they did in the original series? Or do you think they're going to keep it as grounded as possible and maybe never even touch it at all? I want to know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. Thank you so much for checking out today's video here on Ape Nation. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. I'll catch you in the next one, so until then, goodbye.